Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchise. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. You know me. I think you know me. I hope you know me. Lance Graulich, your host. So today, it seems like kids and pets the last couple of months. People are saying we're in a recession. We're going into a recession. Who knows what a recession is even defined as these days? But kids and pets, we're always going to take care of. So today, an amazing early childhood education franchise. They have 5 corporate locations. 5. I love when franchisors invest in corporate locations. He's a recovering lawyer, 30 years as a lawyer, if you can believe that. And really, he had a higher calling. So I want to welcome to the show, Frank Toral.
Thank you, Lance. An honor to be here today.
Awesome.
On your podcast. I know a lot of people tune in, so I will do my best to answer your questions today.
Spoken like a true attorney. So the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And also to welcome to the show, Miss Chloe Lee, the franchise development manager for Neighborhood Kids. Welcome.
Thank you, Lance. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't think I even said the name yet. So Neighborhood Kids is the franchise we're going to talk about today. Let's start with the way back segment of the show. I call it the way back or the past. Let's Frank, start with you. What got you into law and where did the transition become this higher calling? I'm going to do something different. And it ended up with this amazing early childhood education franchise.
Oh, thank you, Lance. Since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm a first generation Cuban American. So everybody was born in Cuba. Parents came over in the late 50s, early 60s. The whole family came over, moved to Chicago. We moved to Miami in the early 70s.
Wait, Chicago, White Sox or let's see, Red Sox? Which one?
The only color I remember in Chicago is white snow.
All right, got it.
I remember that. That's about it. We left when I was about 7 years old. I remember shoveling snow out of the highway, but I would say White Sox and the Bulls.
Got it.
But we came over to Miami. That was my dream, to become an attorney. We're a working class family. My mom and dad held 2 jobs, and I was able to go to college, the first one in my family to finish on time. Graduated from University of Florida in Gainesville a long time ago. I won't date myself, but it was a while ago. And I went to law school soon after that, right here in South Florida. And my dream came true. I was able to become a lawyer, and I founded my own law firm for 20 years. We served families all across the state of Florida, had a great team. And then something changed. My heart changed. I started volunteering in my local church. It was a big church in Fort Lauderdale. I saw this big guy, 6'5", tattoos. I think he even had an earring. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm in church listening to this guy. He started talking, Lance, and he talked about moving your life from success to significance. And when he said that, it grabbed me, piqued my interest. Like, what does that mean? You know, I was doing pretty good in the law firm, but then I understood that God had a purpose and a plan for my life. I started volunteering. I started going on leadership trips. He was a big leadership guy. John Maxwell, all these different leadership experts that we were exposed to as a team. I joined the church as a volunteer, as part of their executive leadership team. The church had about 10,000 members, so pretty good sized team. A lot of capacity on that team. I was not paid, so I did this for free. Can you imagine that? A lawyer does something for free.
What's the matter with you?
It was my pro bono contribution, but really, yes. I love to be there. And here's the dynamic. The more time I spent hanging out at the church, Lance, the less time I wanted to be in my law firm, because I found purpose in that in a way that I couldn't find, even though I was getting paid really well. I found purpose. And so 2016, I felt really a calling to full-time ministry. So I sold the practice. I sold everything. We moved to Palm Beach County, which is just north of us, just north of where I had the law firm in Fort Lauderdale.
What'd you do with your snow shovel?
I ditched that. I figured we wouldn't have to use it for a while, even though it's like 1 degree colder in Palm Beach County.
Yeah.
So we moved to Palm Beach County to start a church. What? Yeah, we started a church. I took my life savings and we started a non-denominational church here in Wellington, Florida, where I'm speaking to you from. Did that for 2.5 years. We acquired two preschools in 2019 as a way of growing the church. And what I didn't anticipate was that COVID would come. We would have to shut down the church, and I was left with two schools. So I'm like, okay. I went from 250 students, my wife and I, to 13 students. And I'm like, man, I can't. So the church closes, and now I'm down to 13 students, and we have no money left. We're all in. But I realized something, Lance. I realized that God hadn't brought us this far to drop us. And I believe that. I didn't know what the plan was, but I wasn't going to step back.
This was just a test.
Yeah. And that's what it felt like. And so really a test of faith. And so what we did is we put our foot on the gas. We hired, a top shelf digital marketing firm in Fort Lauderdale. And they grew our schools, Lance. And by the end of 2020, we were on a waiting list. That following summer, we doubled in size. We had another two schools inside of some really great established churches, grown to two more campuses, and the future looks bright. But it required a step of faith. Sort of God met us where we were. So we're excited, poised for, I think, for not only success, but here it is again, for significance. So what we want to do, Lance, is we want to give people the same opportunity that was given to us as new owners of a business and now a franchise. And that's why we went into franchising, is we want to give couples an opportunity to not only to build wealth, but to have purpose in the process.
Love it. Well, let's throw it over to Chloe for a moment. So, Miss Chloe, you are like a franchise professional.
I mean, I wouldn't say a professional yet, but it will be in the future.
Awesome. So, Chloe, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Stuart, Florida. It's about 45 minutes north of here. I grew up there my whole life. Came from super low income family. Mom was a single mom working 3 jobs. So I was always helping her with my brother and any way I could. So I put myself through college on my own, bought my first car on my own, and
nice.
One of the first to graduate college in the family. So
awesome. So what got you into franchising? When, most people hear about franchising because they know McDonald's, everybody knows it, whether you're eating their burgers and things, whatever. I mean, having a shake, everybody knows McDonald's. Is that your first experience with franchising?
Definitely was. Either that or Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I think I'm more of a Chick-fil-A fan, but
got it. So how'd you fall into franchising?
Yeah, so my college experience was quite something. I first started as like a biochem major, thinking I wanted to be this great pharmaceutical doctor, and those dreams just kind of pushed aside. I wasn't really loving it as much anymore, and I just wanted something more bubbly, something more fun in the field. So I went into education because I've always had a calling for kids. I did that for a while, and I was actually doing a business minor. And I just loved like the business world and everything about it. And I actually met one of the professors there at the university. His name is John Hayes. He's actually the president of the Titus Center of Franchising. And I spoke with him for a little bit, and I joined one of the classes and fell in love with franchising. So it's crazy because even before college, I always dreamed of maybe operating my own franchise one day, or just doing work in the field before I even knew what actually franchising was. So I took some of his classes and graduated with a concentration and met Frank, and just overwhelming.
Love it.
In love, yeah.
Love it when a plan comes together. So when it came to, so Frank, there's 5 corporate locations right now. There's another 2 in development, 2 franchises in development. Those are the first 2 franchises. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. And where are those going to be?
I think those will be in Palm Beach County because those are where the franchise owners are from, but they're willing to travel. They're willing to go to Miami, to Fort Lauderdale. One of them said, hey, we love Orlando, which is one of our markets, initial markets. If you have something in Orlando, we'd love to go there.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about your franchise selection process. Frank, when you and Olivia, right?
Yes.
when you guys started this, your initial vision based on yours, I mean, obviously every franchisor wants to find, because you've been successful, they want to find franchisees like you that share your vision. I mean, what does that look like? What are the first two franchisees, as an example, doing for a living now that it caught their eye? Neighborhood Kids is for me.
Well, the first franchise owners that we have were former parents of a student that attended Neighborhood Kids, and they're entrepreneurs. They have a small business, and they're really good at what they do. They do well, but the husband wanted more. He's like, man, I want to make an impact in the world that's multi-generational. You know, I want to leave my mark in the world that's more than just making money. I want to impact kids, and I know that if I impact kids, that I'll have that multi-generational impact. So they're small business owners. The other couple, their background is law, medicine, pharmaceuticals, and education. So it's two families that came together to whom we awarded the second franchises. They were all friends in college. They're like, hey, we want to own a business. We love the faith-based preschool concept. We're in.
Got it. Now, how big are these schools, square footage wise? How many classrooms? What's kind of that range?
I would say it's 140 students. Our franchise disclosure document lists that it's minimum of 100, but as we're seeing, we really want our franchise owners to do well financially. I mean, yes, it's a purpose-driven business, but I want them to succeed. I want them to do well financially. So what we are doing is we're amending our FDD to include that the average square footage is going to be at least 8,000 square feet, which will give them an opportunity to have a school of at least 140, 150 students, which by any measure is considered a large preschool.
That's awesome. And the franchise selection process, when you guys are talking to people, who are you really, well, let's talk about the actual process. There's obviously a first call. Is that with Chloe?
Actually, our leadership team consists of, in addition to Chloe, we have Mecca Johnson, who was the former executive director of national training and development for the Primrose schools.
Nice.
So she did that for 20 years. She helped them. She was part of that team that helped them grow from 50 to 350. And my hat's off to Primrose. I think they are the preeminent brand in the space. And so Mecca brings all of that institutional franchise experience to us. And she helped us institute a franchise owner selection process, which includes being on Fran Connect. And they have a process by which you can financially vet your franchise owners. You can vet them based upon your vision and values. And then there's out of Australia, it's called Nathan Profiler. So Nathan Profiler is like a psychological assessment that determines fit. You know, what are their leadership gaps? What are their strengths? And so we take all that together, and we decided up front, we've got 3 people on our leadership team, that we would have to come to a consensus, unanimity, when it comes to selection of a franchise owners. So if somebody checked all the boxes, and Mecca or Donna, our other franchise leader, our CFO, said, you know what, I don't think they're a fit, we're going to defer to that in honor of what we initially agreed to, that unless all of us agree, we will not proceed with a franchise owner. So we're pretty highly selective, and I think that that's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's good to be picky. I tell people all the time, as a franchise broker myself, it's a two-way street. It's like,
and it's not easy. Our first lead came to us and said, hey, I have the cash. I don't need a loan. I can do it right now. And he was a great guy, but not a good fit. So I had to walk away from somebody that didn't need a loan, was ready to go. And I'm like, but so
I love that. I love that quote. He was a great guy, but not a good fit. And it takes a man of integrity to admit and to say that, and to not allow them in the brand, because a lot of new franchisors are happy to make an exception, bend the rules or the standards or whatever it might be. And usually it doesn't work out so well.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So within that process, do you guys have some sort of discovery day or meet the team day? Are people required to come to Florida and tour some of the locations before?
Yes, we'd like them to. So speaking of locations, our model is very unique, Lance. We are not we have our 2 original buildings that we started with in 2019. You know, we have the property and we own the buildings, but our expansion model is inside of churches. So as we are awarding franchises, the number one factor, I think, in franchising as a whole, but specifically in early childhood education, is finding space.
Yeah.
We believe we've unlocked that because there are thousands of churches in America that are sitting empty Monday through Friday. Some great churches, all kinds of denominations, they're reaching their community, and on Sundays they're packed.
Yeah.
But on Mondays they're empty. And so we've discovered a way to plug in our franchise owners inside of established churches, which are already in great communities.
That's awesome.
And it eliminates a multi-million-dollar SBA loan, and our time in the market will get them in within 12 to 18 months.
This is absolute genius. It really, really is. I had no idea. I was making the assumption that this was just brick and mortar, and to take advantage of that real estate. Not only is it the loan, it's the ramp up time.
Yeah.
Because as somebody signs, you might already have relationships in that county or city or state, and your reputation will precede itself long term, that you're going to have churches reaching out to you left and right.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we just got back from the IFA conference, our first one in Vegas. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to Vegas." And she didn't attend, but we really refined the vision there, Lance. And we decided, Chloe, Mecca, and Don and I, our team, we decided, you know what, we're going to focus on the churches. We're going to focus on great churches with great organizations that have a great reputation. And we're going to get them on board first. And then we can afford to match, to pair pre-selected and vetted franchise owners with those churches in their communities. And that's starting to work out really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's fabulous. There's some restaurant franchises over the years, bigger ones like IHOP, that used to buy the land or the building, build out the restaurant, operate it as a corporate location, then sell it turnkey to a franchisee.
There you go.
They knew that they didn't have to wait for a loan. They already had, money.
I love that. I love that. I didn't know that.
It's turnkey it as quick as you can. It helps your own development, and I'm loving this. This is fabulous stuff. So let's talk about your secret sauce, with the kids and what you're doing. Obviously faith-based. Now, when you mentioned churches and you mentioned all denominations, so it doesn't matter who comes to you as long as they share your vision, because faith is that specific yet broad word depending on the denomination, as long as they share your values.
Yes. We are, when I say faith-based, it's a Christian worldview, but within that, there are 200 mainline denominations in America that fall within that. Yeah. I have families that are Hindu. I have families that are Jewish. I have families that from all different spectrums that are agnostic, that may not go to a religious service, but guess what, Lance? Man, they want their kids exposed to foundational family values.
Yeah.
They want their kids exposed to love, hope, and faith, and honoring your neighbor and loving your neighbor, which is our number one value. Love your neighbor as yourself. There's such an incredible hunger and thirst by moms and dads for that. It's really been incredible to witness that.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely phenomenal. So let's talk about the startup costs. For those listening that aren't aware, we talk about the franchise disclosure document often. Franchising is regulated by the federal government, Federal Trade Commission specifically. It's 23 items in the franchise disclosure document for anybody that's franchising. And so in your case, the item 7, in the startup phase, obviously, if you're building a brick and mortar school, like you said, about 8,000 square feet, it's going to cost you some money. How much was, what was the average for your corporate locations?
We started with 2 locations. It was $5.3 million for those 2 locations. And those weren't brand new. Those schools had been there 30 and 45 years respectively. So that's a lot of money. If you were to build an 8,000 square foot building on, let's say, half an acre today, you're spending $4 million plus minimum, probably closer to 5 to 6. Once you factor in the land and the interest on the construction and all that. So our model is completely different than that. Our minimum initial investment, the range is, it's about $125,000. Our franchise fee is $70,000. $400,000, which is competitive with most major brands. What is not competitive in a good way is the total investment, 400 to 800. Look at any other brands, and I invite those watching to look at the other brands' FDDs. I mean, they're at $2, $3, $4, $5 million. We're at $400 to $800,000 all in. And the variability of 400 to 800 really comes down to, does the church have a playground? No, that's 150 grand. So you could get in for just over $400,000 and have a business that produces over $1 million a year.
I was just going to say, and based on your history and based on your item 19 in your franchise disclosure document, you know, before you know it, you're going to be doing $1.5 million. Right now, you're over $1.2 million.
Yes, and that's based upon when we disclose that on our item 19. That was based on 2020 numbers of our corporate schools. We've had two tuition raises since then, and the size of the school. You know, Chloe is sitting in our largest school right now of 150 students, and she can attest we're busy. And we're busy because families need exceptional childcare.
Frank, I'm not sure if it settled in with everybody like it just hit me. 2020 was the worst year for so many businesses because of the pandemic. So if you're producing those types of numbers in 2020, that's pretty incredible. I look forward to your new numbers coming out soon, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. So Chloe, when you got involved in this, first time working in early education?
Yes.
And so what is really your role in this process? What are you doing for neighborhood kids? And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so right now I am working with churches and pastors and kind of just really working along Frank, Mecca, and Donna, just being a sponge and soaking up all the information I possibly can from them and just learning from them. And they're kind of just really influencing me on what my role is going to be. Right now, we are currently getting a church list together in the state of Florida. So we're working all the way from South Florida up to like Tallahassee, Orlando, the Panhandle. So I've just really been getting kind of a church list together for ideal candidates and church locations for us. So we've been just working on that, kind of figuring out our models of how we are going to do this and reaching out to the pastors and churches. So that's just really been my key role right now, getting things ready because we're going to be taking off pretty fast soon. So
love it. That sounds awesome. So Frank, the target right now is where? I mean, obviously you have a concentration in South Florida. Chloe was talking about Northern Florida and what have you. Is it to fill up Florida first or just bust out across the country?
Well, ideally it would be to grow concentrically, from Palm Beach County. But we are authorized to sell franchises in South Carolina, Texas, and Georgia. Now here's a quiz for you, Lance. What do Texas, South Carolina, and Georgia have in common? And Florida. Let's see. Barbecue? Very close. Yes. That's like a religion. It's churches. There are more churches in those states, especially Texas, Georgia, and Florida, that are sitting empty. And we would love to partner with those churches and pair high capacity franchise owners to run multi-million-dollar schools inside of those churches.
Yeah, I could only imagine the marketing effort here. This is fun because once you've attracted those churches, it's easy to then attract the franchisees, and you have this. I mean, it's just, and the marketing just follows because one of the best word of mouth marketing scenarios. It's like when I played soccer as a kid. All it took was all the kids were talking. Oh, mom, sign me up for soccer. And then all the kids tell each other. It's the same type of thing here with families. It spreads like wildfire. There's a new early childhood education center franchise, et cetera. This is going to be amazing. It's called Neighborhood Kids. So, I mean, this is super, super exciting. So let me ask you, who runs this school? Let's talk about from a structure. If you were a franchisee of the first location in Dallas, Texas, what do you need as a franchisee? You mentioned the investment. Is that a school director built into that? Because in most cases, most of your franchisees are not going to be teachers or come from education, I'm going to guess.
Right. Yeah, and that's such a great question. You don't have to have experience in early childhood education. My wife and I had zero, and yet we succeeded. And the reason we succeeded is because we had great people in place, great directors. So you hit it right on the head, Lance. I mean, having a director is a key, indispensable component of not just opening a school, but thriving inside of that school. We provide some very extensive training when it comes to directors and owners. So we have a 200-point checklist to open a school. Training is almost 200 hours. So it's a lot of training on operating a school, but we really want to encourage our owner operators to hire a great director. We have a very unusual model in our corporate schools, 2 directors per location. It may not be the most financially advantageous, but I'll tell you what, you're able to support those teachers, pay more attention to the kids, and service the families at a level at which you couldn't do if you were just one.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. You just started talking about training, so let's lay that out a little bit more specifically. When somebody becomes a franchisee, you got a couple there. Have they gone through training yet? They're probably still looking for a building, I think.
Yeah, orientation. So we put them through an initial orientation. We require, if it's a spouse, at least one of them to have their Florida director's credentials. So we require them to be a director. The bank did the same thing for my wife, Olivia, and I before they would approve us on the loan. So we felt, hey, let's get some skin in the game. Let's get some basic foundational knowledge of early childhood education. So we require them to do that. And then we put them through a fairly extensive process, 2 weeks. And part of that is visiting our campuses, watching how it works. And so it's real-time feedback in a real environment, not some antiseptic corporate location. We want to make them feel part of what's happening in the life of the schools as part of the training.
Love it. So, and the training, did you say 200 hours?
It's about 140 hours,
okay.
But in reality, when they spend time at the schools, it pushes it closer to 200. And I think, and that includes also the training and education to be a director.
And although my mom and my wife, everybody was teachers or school principals, I should know this, but early childhood education is defined from what ages in your case?
In our case, it's infants to 4-year-olds.
Oh, infants too. Okay.
10 weeks. One of my favorite things to do, Lance, is to walk into one of our infant rooms at one of our locations and see young adults that love kids and have a calling, and they're rocking these little babies. And there's no greater feeling than watching a mom or a dad that's in a hurry, jumping in his car, going to work, knowing that his little baby girl is being taken care of, and he's able to peek in and someone is loving on his little girl that was just born, and mom's working. And so for us, that's a huge win that we can partner with parents in that way. A lot of preschool programs don't have those young ages, but I think that's the time when working parents need us the most.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you're helping me deliver my questions here because you fell into another piece. So we talked about the directors, needing 2 directors. It works more efficiently. How about the staff? Everybody in the world is having problems hiring people. And usually it seems when you're hiring for pets or kids, it seems to be a little bit easier at times. So who are you looking for to take care of this 10-month-old baby and other classes? And, what's the age range? What is the certification? Do they have to be teachers, or, how does that work?
Don't have to be teachers. We would like them to have a certificate in early childhood education. In the state of Florida, it's called a CDA, a Child Development Associate. We love people that go to college for it, someone with a bachelor's degree in education. We love that because it shows a commitment to what we're doing. And so typically, during COVID, teachers had been there for 10, 15, 20 years. A lot of them retired from the profession altogether, which left a vacuum. But a lot of young adults in college, recent college graduates coming to us, that's an opportunity, but it's also a challenge because you have to train them. And some of these young adults, need some help. They just got their first car, and they're just got their first apartment, and I got to sign that lease, and what does that mean? I'm getting engaged. And so it's really helping them develop as professionals, as adults too. And it's also training them about classroom management, how to do that well. And one of the ways that we try and retain them, Lance, is we want to promote from within. I would much rather hire or promote someone to an assistant director position or a director position that starts out, let's say, for example, in the infant room. And we just did that. We had a young lady that was in the infant room 6 years. And I said, hey, are you going to school? She goes, yeah. And I said, well, how much longer till you graduate? She goes, oh, I have 2 classes. I'm like, 2 classes? I said, I'll pay for that. So she got her bachelor's in education. She got out of the infant room, became an assistant director. And about a month ago, we promoted her. And now she's leading the center by herself as the lead center director. And that she's just such a wonderful example of how we try to create, to answer your question, genuine community within the schools. And I think that's how we try and attract, retain, and develop our educators.
That's awesome. So she's been with you how long?
She's only been with us for about a year and a half.
Okay.
But she had been in a previous program for 6 years in the infant room.
Yeah.
And we just, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you. So you and Olivia, when you bought the first location, when was that?
October 2019.
Yeah, 2019. Okay, so you've been doing it long enough, that's for sure, to become experts in this already, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call us experts. I mean, good people make you look good.
Well, it's hard to be an expert working with kids because everything's always changing, you know?
Yeah,
exactly. When TikTok came about, I think everybody thought they had it figured out before that.
Right, exactly.
Now the rules have changed.
Yes. And that's interesting because our teachers, we have an application that engages the parents with what's going on in the classroom. And sometimes it's challenging. Hey, put your phone down, because they're on their phone taking pictures of the kids, sending them to mom and dad that are asking for it. But that's a whole new world where you have to have a device in the room and then pay attention to the child at the same time.
Yeah. I also have to ask sort of a curriculum type question. I know this is early childhood education, but you see it on all the news channels these days, or most, about how parents aren't always having a say in their kids' education. How do you and Olivia and your entire brain trust decide how you're going to, because you have options as to how to do this. You're already committed to the fact that, your heart told you to follow your passion and do a faith-based business. But how does that work? How does that change if you have to change things? How does that change also within a franchise system?
Well, I mean, when it comes to curriculum, we understand that parents are interested in education and they're interested in their kids learning values, being part of a community, that emotional maturity. And with every age group, we push them. We challenge them in a good way. We're not asking them to take the SATs at 4 years old, but
right.
I mean, but as they move from room to room, so an infant goes to a 1-year-old room, and then the 1-year-old room goes to a 2, and okay, grabbing a pencil and those things, and phonics and learning to speak and learning to write. And so we're moving them along the continuum. And when it comes to curriculum, it's a combination of not only education, but it's a combination of a faith-based curriculum. And we take the two of those, knowing that their exposure to God will probably be the only exposure that they get until they get to make that decision as adults on their own. So it really is, for us, a tremendous responsibility and an honor to partner with parents because they trust us. Someone said, hey, Chick-fil-A sells sandwiches. He said, Frank, you sell trust. And I'm like,
I love it.
Man, that's really good. And he actually said Chick-fil-A sells culture and we sell trust. But I love that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Probably the last subject in this conversation is about marketing. And I touched on it, throwing my opinion out there because, there's a stickiness, there's an excitement, there's a passion for so much of what we talked about already today. And it's easy to get people's attention because when you hear about other sort of daycares or early childhood education, look, I guess it's everybody's personal preference. I'm sure there's some great ones out there.
Yes.
But it's pretty amazing what you're talking about. But in your marketing, how does that play out? How have you used it? How are you going to use what you've learned about marketing thus far for your franchisees? What are those best practices?
I think the best practices are, we heard, Chloe and I heard, along with our team, we were listening to, I think the CEO of McDonald's was talking. He was talking about intellectual curiosity. He's like, as you're here at this conference, keep your eyes open and learn. And we really had an opportunity to refine our vision. And so it's not only taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves with churches that don't have space, but Lance, there's churches that don't want to be in the preschool business anymore. I mean, they have their congregation and they don't want to run it anymore. The school that we just took over in Delray Beach, Florida, same thing. They've been running that school for 70 years. And the pastor's like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a drain, and there's been a mission drift. And I'm trying to run the church and the school and hiring, people. And Frank, can you do it? And I said, yeah, we can, because it's all we do.
It's a big commitment to do it right, as you know.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to marketing, it's understanding that we have to have our eyes on prospective franchise owners that are purpose driven and want to make that generational impact. Then we have to look at churches that don't have space, that want us to operate in there, and then churches that are operating schools that want someone else to do it at a higher level so they don't have to. And so when we look at marketing our brand, we're really looking at it through the lens of not only the prospective franchise owner, but their partners, their ministry partners, and those will be the churches that will fill up the schools. Talking about marketing, they won't have to do much. If they plug into a great church and they've got thousands of people coming, there's your enrollment. What's your marketing budget? Not much.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and social media, I mean, there's a lot of easier ways to reach out to people and show people what you're doing, in a way to, communicate. I'm sure you'll have a TikTok video sometime, right?
Yeah, we're going to let Chloe do that.
Chloe, final words of wisdom for today, Chloe. We'll go Chloe first, and Frank, you can wrap it up for us.
Watch out for neighborhood kids TikTok.
I love it. Now, Chloe, go ahead.
We're on the move, and we're excited to just do this mission-driven, faith-based education system all across America. And we hope that if you are watching today, that you take this next step in your life. And if you're a pastor watching out there, we hope that you are just encouraged and that we could help you with your church and just be successful all together. So thank you again, Lance, for having us. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Chloe. All right, Frank, final thoughts, words of wisdom from you, Mr. Founder.
2 words. I'll end with what I started with, Lance: success and significance. If there's a prospective franchise owner that wants to succeed in a brand that is just getting its foothold in this country, that wants to add significance to their path, we're it. Because we think that we can bring both of those into the lives of not only the franchise owners, but their families, their communities, their churches, and ultimately this nation. So we think we're a part of something really transformative here, that I think that will be very attractive to your audience and future franchise owners all across this country.
Love it. Thank you so much, Frank and Chloe, for being here. That is a wrap. Neighborhood Kids, faith-based franchise, early childhood education. Now you know. Reach out if you have any questions, anyone. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.